Hello there everyone, Mr. E here. Today, another tutorial lesson on hypercritical and hyperviolence. I know that some of you might have seen the video yesterday. Thank you for watching that. The algorithm decided that nobody needed to see that video, and it just completely hid it from everybody for some reason. So I'm going to attempt making this video again, because I think it's important, because I'm getting a ton of comments on my videos, especially the one I put out today with the tac axe, where it's like, wait a second, I thought that you weren't supposed to have hyperviolence and hypercritical at the same time. Don't they like completely cuck each other? And the answer to that is no. These talents are both incredibly powerful for melee builds. They do different things. They do have a bit of an overlap at times, but having both of them is more powerful than having just one or the other. So that's what we're going to prove today. We're going to talk about the situations that works in. If you guys could comment down below something that the YouTube algorithm will actually allow this to like be shown to people, so that this video will actually somehow it be seen and understood by more people. I think the algorithm just really wants people to be bad at Darktide, which is a damn shame. So I'll just go ahead and say like Raid Shadow Legends, Mr. Beast, Five Nights at Freddy's. What else is out there? I don't know. Like YouTube scam, or like phone scam, Indian phone scam, do not redeem, that sort of thing. Okay, there we go. Now we've successfully baited the algorithm and we're all here and we're all paying attention. Let's start with whatever's on the screen here. What are we looking at? Well, this is a flowchart. This is a flowchart of the way that hypercritical works, a very finicky talent. So we need to understand the basic fundamentals of what hypercritical is going to do for us. So let's start out here at the top. We first ask the first question, which is, did you crit? If you crit, then you can proceed to the next step. If you didn't, repeat until such time as you do get a critical hit on a target. The second question is, was it on a humanoid target? If the answer is no, you must repeat until you get a crit on a humanoid target. If the answer is yes, you can proceed to the next step. This just means that no crushers, reapers, or bulwarks can be hit by this effect. Then, if you got a yes, how much damage did you do as a proportion of their remaining HP? If you did greater than or equal to 50%, but less than 100% of the remaining HP with your attack, then hypercritical will proc, and you will receive no on-kill effects for this procking right here. However, in the other situation, if your attack did greater than or equal to 100% of their remaining HP, you will receive normal on-kill effects. So the way to think about this is, if you did not have this talent, if you did not have hypercritical allocated, all that would mean is you just erase this part right here. Did you hit an enemy? Yes. How much damage did you do? Greater than or equal to 100% of the remaining HP? Well then congratulations, you just killed that enemy completely normally. Then hypercritical doesn't even need to be on your build at all, right? So what value does hypercritical provide us? Well, it provides us this value. The value that if you can crit a humanoid enemy and they are knocked to somewhere in that category there, it will proc and clean up the kill for you. Now, this is amazing because it ends fights before they begin. It makes fighting a group of enemies much more simple because you can blow up several targets very, very quickly and just remove them from the fight. The problem with that is this right here, no on-kill effects, meaning you will not stack any blessings on your weapons. You will not stack any blackout grenades. You will not stack, specifically for this video, hyper violence, which is the other talent that we need to focus on. Those all require you to get the kill using this effect over here. So if hypercritical jumps in and grabs the kill for you and does that work, then you won't get stacking credit towards any kill effects on your class, on your weapon, whatever it is. So that's the thing to be aware of here. And the thing that people are concerned with is, wait a second, hyper violence is an on-kill effect. Isn't that going to completely step on hyperviolence's toes? And the answer to that is no. They work together, and having both of them is going to be stronger than having only one or the other. So that means we need to go to our graph here. And what we're going to do is we're going to erase everything else so that we're not distracted by it, right? Except for the one part that is very valuable to us. Okay, so now, what have we got here? Well, this graph is showing your effective damage contribution of having one talent, hypercritical, versus the other talent, hyperviolence. How much work effectively each one of them is doing at different stages of your player power. So way down here at the bottom of player power, imagine this as a situation where you are playing a Rampage Hive Scum, you have no Rampage active, you have no Stim active, you have not killed any enemies, and therefore you do not have any hyperviolence additive stacks on you. You don't have any stacking damage on your weapon, and you are not aiming for headshots, right? If all of these are the case, if you are doing the lowest possible performative damage, then you are going to get way more value out of hypercritical versus hyperviolence, because hypercritical just says, okay, well, if you can at least hit that target for half of their HP, I'll do the rest for you and clean that up. And you know what this makes hypercritical really, really valuable for? It's as a backup weapon for tons of range builds. So if you're going a range build and it's over the range tree, right, it is not a bad pickup because you can just hit a target, and on melee builds, a lot of times you have enough base damage that you don't need this effect. But on range builds, if you get something in close range to you and you just want to get it the fuck out of your face and you hit it one time and you get a crit, this makes it much more likely that you go ahead and execute them on the spot, which is a very, very nice contribution. And when you're going into a melee build, it's very nice to start out at the fight by immediately removing a big cluster of enemies, by thinning out the herd, by just nuking a couple of them, culling them directly with hypercritical. So it gets a lot of value at that low power level. However, let's scale our damage a little bit. What happens as we start to activate more and more of these damage increasing effects? So for instance, this could be stacking damage on your weapon with effects like Slaughterer, or like on hit effects like Shred. As we stack more and more damage and more crit chance, as we activate Rampage, as we activate our Stim, our base power level goes up, and therefore each individual hit that we are doing hits harder and harder and harder. And the harder that you can hit as at a baseline, the more likely that you are to end up in this situation down here, to hit the enemy for at least 100% of their remaining HP and overkill them. And once you can do that, hyperviolence steps in here and scales itself, because hyperviolence will give you overkill effective damage, and that will then mean that you hit the next target even harder, so you're much more likely to end up overkilling that enemy, and so on and so forth. It's a positive feedback loop. So hyperviolence can also act as a way to scale your damage increase, and therefore it provides more value to itself as it scales. So hyperviolence is an insanely powerful effect for melee focused builds, because those melee focused builds can already ramp their melee damage just enough to get to here. It's like kickstarting like a lawnmower or something, right? You need that something to get yourself going, to get over that first hurdle, that one big blast on an enemy that gets you that first kill for some overkill, and then you just go on your own from there. Once you've got that engine going, you can ramp up to your maximum power. And then once you're at the absolute maximum of your power, this is with Rampage going, Stim going, hyperviolence is fully stacked, your weapon is fully stacked, you are getting every headshot instead of doing body shots, all the damage increases that you could possibly have. Most, if not all, enemies you will encounter that are eligible to be called by this effect will just be killed outright by your attacks anyway. So when you're fully scaled and you hit any enemy with a heavy attack and it is a critical headshot, any humanoid enemy, I think all of them except for the Mauler are killed by that attack with the tac axe. That is just without anything additional, especially if you have hyperviolence stacked up. So yeah, at the very upper echelons here, there are very few enemies that still are needing to be culled because your base damage is so high, you're almost always ending up in this bucket. So the other category of effect of this one right here, is not being activated all that much because you are shooting way over this bracket of damage. And hopefully that makes sense. So why would you take these two together? Well, as we just laid out here, when you start a fight, it's very valuable to get some early kills, some early picks on stuff, because the people who will argue that hyperviolence is the only one that's valuable here, they like to think that they are perfect players. They like to think that they will immediately snipe the lowest health enemy, and then they'll turn on the medium health enemy, and they'll do a dominoes effect, and they'll go up. And that if hypercritical steals any of their kills, they're just screwed. They're sitting like ducks in the water. But watch how this fight plays out here. I am going to do a 1v whatever this is. I'm going to fight this group of enemies in this clip. This group of enemies is comprised of 1 Mauler, 1 Crusher, 2 Metal Ragers, 2 Shotgunners, and 4 of these dudes, as you can see here, the Renegade melee fighters. So I am using both Hypercritical and Hyperviolence, and I'm going to play this at half speed and pause and commentate on what is going on at each step of the way, so that you can see that both of these talents generate a ton of value in your average melee fight. Let's go. So starting out here, I immediately activate Rampage, and I go in for a heavy attack and kill this guy right here. As you can see there, I use that Hyperviolence overkill to then deal a light attack to the Crusher and a light attack to this Rager here that both did over 1200 damage. Then I do another light attack on this Rager, and thanks to him being softened up, now Hypercritical actually activates and executes him, which frees me up to disengage here. And then I need to re-engage. Now I'm seeing 2 big beefies right in front of me here. I need to get a reset on my Hyperviolence so I can stack some damage into them. And that is when I notice this guy who's on my right. So I overhead him, and then I go in for some more light attacks. But this Rager here comes out of fucking nowhere. Like, you can't see him in this frame at all. And then, as soon as I kill that guy, there he is. So he starts in this wind-up attack that's going to be a flurry of blows. If I don't deal with him very quickly, I'm going to be in some serious trouble. You see I'm out of dodges already because I'm sloppy with my dodging, but that's really not what's on my mind. What's on my mind is getting blown up by this Rager or perhaps overheaded by the Crusher. So thankfully, I just drop an attack on him and instantly kill him, which frees me up to instead turn my attention back to the big Crusher and dodge his attack sliding to the right. Now I see a perfect opportunity here. I've got these 2 weak melee guys, then I've got these 2 medium health elites, and then I've got the Crusher. So I'm going to domino. I'm going to go bing, bang, boom, and roll Hyperviolence into all of them. So I just start light attacking these guys. They get killed in a couple of swift light attacks, and then one of my attacks cleaves through and cleans up that Mauler for me with a Hypercritical hit. And that means that all I have left is this Shotgunner and this Crusher. So I immediately formulated a plan. I'm going to hit this Mauler, or sorry, this Shotgunner as hard as humanly possible, and I'm going to cascade that into the Crusher. So I go here for an overhead, bing, nail him perfectly, headshot, and then I'm going to do an uppercut into this Crusher's chin for about 3,400 damage casually, and then just finish him off from there. Bada bing, bada boom, GG. So that fight was equal parts both of these talents doing work. Hyperviolence generated me a ton of value right off the bat here because I was able to nab an early kill, and I promise you that there are plenty of enemies in the environment that you can do this to as well. Heavy attacks are a great way to start a fight with this class because you can almost always insta-kill at least one small enemy and then roll that into some more damage on other targets. Hypercritical almost immediately generates value for me here by culling this Rager before he gets off his chain of attacks, which you see he's about to starting. And then I can dodge back, get a reset in Hyperviolence, and then again it culls this Rager before he gets to do any attacks on me. So then I can dodge this. And then I go in for swings here. And in this fight, if I hadn't had Hypercritical, I could have spent a little bit longer fighting all this stuff, but instead, Hypercritical goes ahead and just does some of the work for me by removing this Mauler here. Does that matter? No, because I literally just overkilled both of these guys right here, so I'm good on Hyperviolence, and then I can take that and doink our Shotgunner here and follow up and doink on the Crusher. So let's go ahead and replay that in regular speed mode so you can see what that decision making looks like in full speed. This is like regular gameplay. It's gonna look really fast now because we're playing it at normal speed. Beautiful. All right, so that combat, from the time of first blow to the time where the Crusher was isolated and staggered and pretty much the fight was over, was about 9 seconds. So that happens incredibly quickly. And this is what I really want to drive home to you guys is, yes, if you were a perfect player and literally every second you could be rolling a Rampage and getting a perfect kill to have the or hyperviolence rather, to have hyperviolence all the way stacked up and generating so much value from it, yes, it would be perfect and ideal. But you know what the most important role in this game is, especially for DPS dealers? It's to kill enemies. It's to remove enemies from the battlefield. Especially when you are in melee, removing enemies that would otherwise be threats quickly and effectively will save you HP, it will save you headache, and it will make doing the rest of the combat puzzle easier. So imagine how that combat encounter would have looked if I hadn't immediately executed both of those Ragers, and if I instead had that Mauler lasting at half health to deal with, if I hadn't popped crits on them and killed them outright. It would be much, much different and much, much harder, and therefore I wouldn't have probably had the space or the ability to line up those last couple shots and instantly kill that Crusher, more or less. So this is the ultimate thing I want to put out there. If you're going for a range build, do not pick Hyperviolence. There's no reason to, right? Hyperviolence is good only for melee builds. If you only have 1 point, and what you can only choose 1 on a melee build, choose Hyperviolence. And if you don't have any crit on a melee build, choose Hyperviolence. However, if you do have crit and you have talent points for both, which you should, on a melee build on Hive Scum, choose both, because they will both generate you a ton of value, and I promise you, you will not feel any detrimental effects of hypercritical. It will generate you so much value in the long run because it's just going to get rid of so much garbage from your screen. That's all I really have to say, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps, and see you next time. Bye.